All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining our October Energy Data Insights on AWS for the OSDU Data Platform Enablement session. My name is Yuri Gubanov. I'm the Worldwide Energy Partner Solution Architect on AWS, and I have been working with Energy Data Insights and OSDU team for the last 2.5 years in AWS and for a little bit longer during the course of my career. So I'm excited to continue this going. This is our third session of the year, and we got a few exciting topics and speakers. So let me go ahead and kind of show the agenda. So today we are going to have, okay, let me go ahead and meet a few more folks. We're going to have two exciting presentations. One is from Scott Kimbleton from IBM about energy data insights and OSDU on premises. And the other one is about the Express for Energy Data Insights from Ben Greer from Hitachi Digital Services. I'll give a quick recap of what we've been on the journey on since the beginning of 2024. And I'll let Scott and Ben do maybe a little bit of larger introductions of themselves during the course of their own portions of the presentations. So I wanted to kind of do a quick recap of what we accomplished this year. Energy Data Insights on AWS for OSDU Data Platform was announced around November of last year at the OSDU Open Group Forum in Houston in November of 2023. So basically, we're almost a year old. And we started these enablement sessions a few months after the launch. So if you look at what we have accomplished this year, it's been pretty cool to see how the community has grown. We hold two enablement sessions so far in 2024, in Q1, which was February, and Q2, which was June. And we had 132 registrations together and 55 attendees combined. And we're also posting the recordings of the sessions on our Energy and Utilities OSDU Data Platform at AWS website. And the two sessions generate more than 400 plus views year to date. What I'm even more excited about is this session actually generate the highest number of registrants and attendees to date. We had around 200 registrations, and so far we're at looks like we're at 58 people present, maybe 59. So people are still trickling in. So super excited to see how this have grown. We covered a few topics year to date. We started with Energy Data Insights overview, which we gave in February and discussed the milestone releases and the roadmap for the product. We talked about the Energy Data Insights workbench, and we did the Energy Data Insights IQ deep dive. And I'll paste the link for the recordings in the chat as well. And all of these videos for our enablement sessions are posted online at the aws.amazon.com Energy and Utilities OSDU Data Platform website. And this session will be posted there as well. So awesome to see how the community is responding to the launch of the product and the amount of energy this is generating. And I'm so excited to continue this, not only in this session, but also in the sessions to come. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our first presenter, Scott Kimbleton from ABM, to talk about the Energy Data Insights on premises. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Let me start my screen share here. There we go. All right, hey, I am Scott Kimbleton. I'm the go-to-market and delivery lead for IBM's OSDU solutions, and I'm our focal point within the OSDU forum, where the platform is originally created by an open source community. And I am really excited to follow on the theme here, Yuri, to tell you about IBM Energy Data Nexus, which is part of the overall EDI offering, and it focuses on on-premise capability, and in particular places that have data residency challenges. And it's really about the hybrid cloud journey, because everybody's on that journey. And so the I'm going to assume that everybody on the call knows what OSDU is. There's a number of articles we can point you to if you need some background. But in a nutshell, it's a data platform focused on upstream data, starting with subsurface and moving into production and actually into mining, if we have any mining folks on the phone. But the real challenge is that not all data can live in the cloud. Some of it needs to stay in country or on premise. And that really does create some challenges in being able to leverage the OSDU data platform. And you can see the types of challenges you may have with data residency. Can I store metadata in the cloud? Maybe. Maybe I could process things in the cloud and store back on premises. And so there's a lot of questions that folks have about how to implement the OSDU data platform on premise. And we want to give you some options and some accelerators. So the presentation, my section is going to cover four things, and this is kind of your cheat sheet for everything that I'm going to share. The focus is going to be hybrid cloud OSDU with AWS and IBM. And, you know, IBM and AWS have actually had a really long relationship around OSDU. I actually got involved around 2019 in the build out of the platform. And we actually formed a co-development team, and we synchronized our milestone releases so that we ensure our features and functions are on par with each other so that you can have that integrated, seamless experience. And we also can coordinate the sales if you would like to purchase it. The AWS EDI on-premise capability, we can coordinate that for you and make that easy. From an architecture perspective, there are three features that I want to make sure that you're aware of. The first is that it's on Red Hat OpenShift, which simplifies and standardizes the deployment. And frankly, you can deploy it anywhere that you can deploy Red Hat OpenShift. Cloud Pak for Data provides you enterprise class analytics, AI, and more than 100 connectors for a number of different types of systems. And then finally, we've actually integrated the metadata between OSDU data on the cloud and on premise. The third thing is the cloud processing. We'll tell you a little bit about how you can store your data in country, but also leverage cloud processing and storage for metadata. And then finally, something we're pretty excited about here is the OSDU in a box, because the OSDU data platform is a wonderful platform, but it's also enterprise grade, and it's a little challenging sometimes. And we have a pre-tested and validated solution where you can just drop that thing in, plug in the power, plug in the network cable, and you're ready to roll. So that's what I'm going to cover. The first thing is the true hybrid cloud nature of the offering. IBM's Energy Data Nexus provides on-premise OSDU, and Energy Data Insights for AWS Cloud provides cloud-based OSDU. And our pre-integration between these two solutions provides technical stability and reduces integration and migration risk. And I think that's really the most important thing for you to be aware of, because both of our OSDU solutions are compliant with the standard, but we've taken the extra step to integrate these two solutions so that you have a seamless experience. The second thing is the architecture. And I'm just going to highlight a couple things. I mentioned the fact that you can deploy it anywhere because of Red Hat OpenShift, whether it's in your local data center, a regional, local, or private cloud, or at the edge. We also have the connectors, which accelerate your deployment and adoption. And we also provide managed services, or you can manage the entire thing yourself. We'll give you instructions on all the things you need to do it. So we're really flexible on how you can implement and manage the solution. This slide here just gives you a little bit more detail about the components of the IBM solution. This will be in the deck that gets sent out after the session. The next thing is the cloud computing for on-premise data. And I'm going to slow down a little bit here because I think this is a real opportunity. So when we think about hybrid OSDU, the folks that can store their data in the cloud already have access to all of the tools and capabilities that are available in the cloud. But if your data has to be on premise, you're presented with a few more tasks you've got to work through. And so one of the things you can do with this solution is store your data on premise, but you can upload that data to the cloud for temporary processing. And the derivative data, based on the rules, can either be stored in the cloud or it can be stored back on premise. And the data that was moved to the cloud for processing is deleted. And there are a number of different ways you can do this, including cryptograph things and others to make sure that data is gone. But the net is, if you really want to be able to leverage the cloud processing, this is the way that you're going to be able to do that. That bulk data moves to the cloud, is processed, and then it can be stored back on premise. The other thing is that if you have an on premise and a cloud based OSDU, all of your metadata can be stored in the cloud, which would give you a seamless view of all of your OSDU instances. The last thing I want to share with you is OSDU in a box. And the benefit here is that we've partnered with Dell Technologies, and we've got a number of different form factors here, from dev test environments to edge to on-premise or even cloud scale in your data center. And we've pre-tested the components of the solution, and you can deploy this in 190 countries, including those with data restrictions and no AWS data center. So this is the easy button, almost literally, for deploying OSDU on premise. And finally, if you are implementing the OSDU data platform in any form or fashion, you are most likely taking on the task of industrializing your data management. And so we have a number of other services that we provide that can help you along that journey, from value to managing the platform itself, integrations, API connectivity, and even advanced analytics. And that is it. IBM Energy Data Nexus, OSDU, everywhere you do business. Thanks, Yuri.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so open to any questions for Scott or myself about the presentation. And like Scott mentioned, so this is our third webinar. So if you're not familiar with OSDU, I'm happy to share some information afterwards. But just on the presentation itself and how Energy Data Insights OSDU on premises with AWS and IBM can work together, feel free to either post a question in the chat or just go ahead and unmute and ask the question directly.
Hey Scott, this is Mayur. Quick
Hey,
question on the hybrid OSDU option. Uh, with hybrid OSDU, uh, what exactly stays on-prem and what goes into cloud? What happens in the cloud?
well, that's a great question. Obviously, it depends on your local regulations. The solution supports options that may not be allowed where you are. For example, uh, some countries will not allow any data to move to the public cloud for any reason under any condition. So in that
Mhm.
case, everything has to stay on-prem. In other situations, things like metadata, the descriptive data about the
Mhm.
information, can be stored in the cloud, whereas the original source data, the actual logs and seismic files, would have to stay on premise. And then the third category of data would be derivative data, the data that
Mhm.
is generated from the processing. And that again may fall where it has to all go back on premise, or it may be allowed to stay in the cloud because it is not the source data. It's not the originating data. And those are the three buckets that we typically um, ensure that we can support.
Yeah. So in that case, in the second bucket which you mentioned, a part of the OSDU is deployed on-prem and part of the OSDU is sits in cloud.
If you if you choose if you need a cloud, sorry, let me back up. Let me back up. So OSDU is deployed on premise if the
Mhm.
data has to be kept on premise. So that's OSDU is on premise. If
Yeah.
you want to do cloud processing of that data, You
Okay.
don't need a second version of OSDU in the cloud. You could simply move the data to the cloud, do your processing, and move it back.
Okay.
So OSDU in this situation would only be on premise.
Okay. Understood. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll kind of add to Scott's train of thought there. So the solution is customizable because the requirements, depending on where you are and what can we do in the cloud versus can we do on-prem, varies drastically from what data you have to what region do you go and things like that. So generally speaking, we can kind of work backwards from your needs and build the solution together. Um, but like Scott said, like generally speaking, if you allow the metadata to be replicated between on-premises and the cloud, we can do that. We've done that. We've shown the proof of concept of that. If you then have the ability to say like, okay, my data cannot leave the on-premises environment, but I'm okay if we process it in the cloud and then do not store any results, that's also like super customizable, and we can do that as well. And there's like a lot of things in between that we can accommodate. So it kind of depends on your business needs, but we've done a few engagements and proof of concept already that we can kind of demonstrate that. Scott, does that resonate? Anything to add there?
No, I think that's a great addition. Thank you.
All right, and I think I addressed the questions in the chime as well about that. So does the hybrid mean between IBM OSD implementations in both, or between IBM and on-premise and the AWS EDI in the cloud? So it means that IBM OSDU on premises and AWS EDI in the cloud. But again, what data you replicate, how all of this processing of the data can be handled, it's we can work with you depending on your needs. Good questions. Any other ones before we switch to the next topic? All right, looks like we got another question. Having discrete data in both locations means that app needs to be able to see data across partitions. Scott, do you want to take this one?
Uh, I'm not sure if it's a question or if it's a statement, because it mentioned first two different instances of OSDU and then it mentioned partitions. I can't see the chat either, so I might be missing some of
Okay.
the context.
I can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just because you're talking earlier about having some data like derivatives stored in the cloud potentially, depending on data residency issues, and some stored on premise. But that puts basically a burden on the application interfaces to be able to connect to multiple OSDUs and be able to see data across both places if you have discrete data stored in two different locations.
That
So
is a
I guess
correct.
there are. Go on, sorry.
I'm sorry, if you wanted to add some more, please do.
No, I was just saying, I think the challenge is, yes, you can have hybrid, but typically it's more replication or feels like more replication rather than discrete data in different locations. Depending on what applications you can run on top that we'll see or be able to connect to multiple OS2 implementations at once, basically to be able to aggregate some of this data together. So if I want to see input data and I want to see derivatives, but input is on premise, your wells, for example, you have in tops and everything else, and then you have some interpretations or analytics that have been done in the cloud.
Correct, correct. And you're right. I think this may come to some of the metadata integration and things that we've done. I think the question though, or the statement is correct. If you have data that must be on premise, it must be on premise. There is no choice about that. And if there's data that you can store in the cloud, you don't have to, but you can if you want to. And if that's a scenario that you have, and this would probably be for larger organizations that have operations in multiple locations where some have restrictions and some don't. If you're a smaller operator that operates in a few locations, you may not even have the option to move things to the cloud. So I think what you're saying is correct, and there is some effort to connect these things together. But because we use consistent APIs and we've pre-integrated the metadata, the effort would be less.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
that
thanks.
this is basically correct, right? So you don't want to duplicate the data on-prem and in the cloud, right? So
Mm-mm.
this basically means that you have some server restrictions that you want to meet and you want to take advantage of both the cloud computing capabilities, the scalability, the new services, while make sure that you meet your data residency restrictions. And this will most likely vary on where you are, what the restrictions is, and all of those things. But the premise of the kind of combined hybrid solution is that you can meet both, right? So you can take advantage of the cloud services for thorough data processing, data wrangling, visualization, I don't know, you name it, while at the same time making sure that this integration between your on-premises data and the cloud data, which you can put in there, maintains all of those parameters that you're looking for your business case. So happy to dive into that a little bit in more detail, but that's kind of the premise of the integration and our EDI partnership with IBM.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about having the same APIs on the on-prem and on the EDI side, but then that is contingent on having the same release version in both sides. So does this mean that EDI and the energy data nexus, the EDN, will move in lockstep when it comes to forum releases?
I
We
can probably. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
good, Urias, go.
Yeah. So the sync on the for so as far as I understood, the question is, do everything has to be in sync on the milestone releases? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, yes,
So
that is
in general, not necessarily, right? So depending on the use case and the data types that you're talking about for your specific use case. So if you build, let's just say if you build a sync for the release 3 milestone 22, and nothing that you're doing impacted between the upgrades for the milestone 23, it will work. But if you have some specific requirements in the new release, then I'm assuming then yes, there is some things that would need to be addressed. Scott, would you agree?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think the main thing to know is that while there's not 100% guarantee that they're going to be in lockstep, we have made it a point to try to uh, do the same milestone releases. And most of our releases come out within a month or two of each other once we get through
Hmm.
the hardening process. So we
Yeah,
try to keep them really, really close.
that's right. Yeah, I think it's a great point, Scott. So we try to keep them very, very close. It's not like at any particular point in time, then you want to have the new data set that we might be a little bit far apart, but we will get on the same cadence with a reasonable time frame.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome questions. I posted Scott's information, his title and his email in the chat. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Scott or to me. I'll post my contact info in the chat as well. Scott, looks like we have another question. How IBM Energy Data Nexus and AWS EDI are associated?
And I really appreciate all these questions. You always want to ask some questions. So, IBM Energy Data Nexus is providing the on-premise OSDU capability as part of AWS's overall EDI offering, right? So if you need OSDU in the cloud, AWS is providing that with their Energy Data Insights solution. If you need it on premise, IBM provides the on premise capability of the overarching AWS offering.
Yeah, and I'll add one more. So AWS and IBM have been partners on OSDU EDI for more than a few years now. I don't know how many has it been. So we definitely have a good working relationship. We understand which everyone is producing and how to integrate those technologies and the solutions together.
And Yuri, I might jump in. Darius Petrovsky from IBM here. We've verbally started collaborating in late 2020, but signed the commercial agreement in 2021. So this has been years ago. It's so long that it falls into those abyss of memories. It has been
Yeah,
a long time. We've been long-term partners. That's integration and working collaboration between our two organizations.
yeah, great ads, Darius. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, so like Darius said, we've been working together for a long time, so we definitely have a good working relationship there. Um, we're at about half past the hour. Maybe one last question. Okay, Scott, looks like this one is for you. What type of infrastructure is required for on-premises OSDU installation?
Uh, we have specifications. Again, I can't see the chat, but we can share the minimum hardware specifications with whoever would like them. I don't want to start going into the minutia of that kind of stuff, but happy to share that in written form.
Yeah, looks like Turun, I pasted Scott's email and his contact information in the chat, so maybe just go ahead and reach out to Scott directly, and he can provide you the more details on the specific infrastructure requirements.
Yeah, hopefully that's okay. I'd be happy to send it out. No problem.
All
All
right, well,
right.
awesome. I'm excited. Looks like this generated a lot of interest. So I know like 1 hour is not a lot of time to address all the questions, but one of the things we're trying to do is to connect the community to the Energy Data Insights, OSDU and AWS builders, including the partners like IBM, and the next one is 47 Lining. So please make sure like you keep this contact information. Feel free to reach out to the folks. And yeah, hopefully that builds the community of always doing AWS and it builds it stronger and we can continue working together. So Scott, Darius, thank you so much for presenting. Real appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for including us, and we appreciate your collaboration over these multiple years.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so the next topic is we're gonna look at a different flavor of an um, instantiating and subscribing to Energy Data Insights and Energy Data Insights on AWS for Azure Data Platform is Express for Energy Data Insights. So Scott talked about how we can deploy Energy Data Insights OSD on premises. Now let's take a look at how we can subscribe to the Energy Data Insights on AWS using the AWS Marketplace. And with that, I will welcome Ben Greer, who is the principal consultant of the Hitachi Digital Services in 47 Lining. Ben, if you're online, feel free to share the screen and quickly introduce yourself.
Excellent. All right. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Cool. Hi, my name is Ben Greer. I'm here from 47 Lining Hitachi Digital Services. I've been involved with the OSDU and EDI since their inception, and I work with the team at 47 Lining that delivers EDI and have been involved in a number of integration projects with EDI and OSDU over the last 6 years now. And today I'm going to share a little bit about Express for Energy Data Insights as the offering, and then we're going to do a little walkthrough of the subscription portal and the data platform console. So let's get rolling. So Express for Energy Data Insights is, as Yuri mentioned, a fully managed, pay-as-you-go, metered, as a service fulfillment model for AWS's Express or AWS's Energy Data Insights distribution of the OSDU data platform. So what that means is you're able to subscribe to Express for Energy Data Insights and get a fully functioning, repeatably deployed OSDU platform with a data platform portal and other integrated optional apps on top that can be managed through a subscription portal and comes in a metered billing model and all available through the AWS marketplace. And included with that are things like, of being able to stay aligned with the OSDU standards. So we continually update Express for Energy Data Insights with the latest releases of the OSDU platform, and then support one or two releases in history as well. So we're able to support upgrading from milestones and then also deploying the latest. And then we're also able to deploy OSDU in AWS regions all around the world. And then included with any of the subscriptions to Express for EDI are things like support and maintenance of your OSDU platform. So continual releases for things like hotfixes or any bugs that are fixed from the forum. So let's look a little bit at what the subscription portal actually looks like. So if you were to navigate to our EDI, AWS Energy subscription portal, and you'll log in. So you'll be presented with a screen that has really just two options. You can either look at your existing subscriptions or subscribe to a new EDI deployment. So as a new user, you would come to the catalog first, and you'll be presented with these three options for subscription choices. So we have the SaaS fulfillment model. So this is the as a service being deployed on a account that we provision for you, and we deploy both the AWS account and the OSD platform on top of it. And this can be on a multi-tenant platform where we are separating the different subscriptions by the partition in the platform, or you can do this on a dedicated data platform instance where the entire AWS account and OSD instance is provisioned on your behalf. And then we also have a PaaS fulfillment model where we're deploying the EDI platform as a service on an account that you provide as part of your AWS organization and larger AWS footprint. And each of these subscription models fits a different use case with the type of interaction you're trying to do with the OSD platform, whether you're just doing some type of a proof of concept or learning how the services and APIs work versus production deployment with your sensitive data and things like that. So let's imagine I'm going to do a tenant subscription here for our SaaS subscription. You'll be presented with our subscription or our deployment creation page. And here's where you would enter information such as the technical contact for your subscription, and then you'll select information such as the host. So this is going to be the type of EDI that you're going to use. Right now, we just have a M20 available in this deployment, and then you have a choice of loading sample data or not in your OSDU instance. This can be really useful for getting started with demonstrating the capabilities of the platform with a test data set that is a public data set that is actually provided from the OSDU form. So you can deploy the OSDU and have expected known records that you can then begin working on integrations on top of without having to go through that effort yourself. Once you've completed the subscription process, you can then, of course, manage your subscriptions. And today we're going to be looking at a M23 demo instance. So that's the subscription I'm going to look at here. You'll see that in my EDI subscription portal, I have a ton of subscriptions because of the testing and development that we do. But here you'd see the details of your subscription. So we'll find things like the region that you've deployed in, the role that's being used. This is your AWS IAM role that's actually being used to fulfill your subscription. The product version that's selected, the subdomain that we're deploying at, whether sample data was loaded, and then the actual AWS account that we've deployed in. Then you have the technical support information, so we can see that Eric Putney from our team here at 47 Lining and Hitachi actually did this Express for EDI deployment. Cool. So once your subscription has completed, you'll see that we have a status here, Currently, I have some that are inactive and deleted, and a couple where the deployment has not succeeded. When there's a deployment in process, that would be the current status. And then once your deployment has completed, and you'll see an active status here, the platform becomes available, and the subscribing user will receive an email, and then you can navigate to that platform's deployment subdomain. So in this case, it's our M23 demo subdomain. And here we'll be presented with the Express for EDI data platform console. And this is now looking at your OSDU deployment and the OSDU services specific to your deployment and any of the data within it. So I'm going to take you through some of the capabilities of this data platform portal. And an important thing to note is that these user interfaces here are exposing the OSDU services underlying. So some of the capabilities that we'll see are a subset of the full capabilities of the OSDU services and the things that other integrating applications may be able to take advantage of. But they allow us to demonstrate data being present in the platform and get companies like ISVs or other application integrator type organizations jump started in their OSDU integrations, and then also help operators with being able to verify that data has been loaded successfully and things like that without having to complete the application integration efforts that can require some time when you're working with OSDU. So the first thing that I'll point out with your EDI console is that you're able to manage the platform status. And this is a really important thing for managing the cost associated with an OSDU deployment. So OSDU, as you may know, is made up of a number of services. And within a Express for EDI deployment, you're able to manage whether these services are on or off. And in this case, I've turned it on for a few hours while we're doing this demonstration today, but this can be managed in a number of ways. You can set things like a schedule so it would run during business hours automatically and users don't have to turn this on and off, or it can be something where you enable the right users to be able to manage the state of your platform. And that is done through the identity and access management view of the EDI data platform portal. So here we can see you're able to manage the users that are part of your OSDU data platform. You can manage the groups that they're a part of, both in the data platform console groups. So these are the things like being able to turn on and off the platform or manage users within the platform. And then also the OSDU entitlements groups, which are used to enforce the authorization within the OSDU ecosystem. So this is your service groups, your data groups, and your user groups. And here we can see them all here. You'll be able to manage them, do things like add or remove a member, see who is a member of the group, and all of those actions. Great. And so here you can see the platform is already on, so I'm going to be able to start interacting with the services. And I think the first view I'd like to show you is the data platform portal. So one of the first things that has to happen with a OSDU deployment is setting up your data and the ability to load data into the platform. So in order to do that, you'll be managing things like schemas and legal tags. Now, this OSDU deployment has the TNO involve test data set loaded in it, and those use this OSDU public data set legal tag. So we can see that there was already one created here, but this is where a data manager person would be able to create new legal tags, which are then associated with data, and they allow you to manage that connection between data and like a contract in real life, and like have an expiration date and things like that, which are then enforced in the OSDU data platform when you're trying to interact with records. The second piece I'd like to point out here is the schema manager view. So this allows you to interact with the mini schemas that make up the OSDU data platform. As I mentioned, these are the schemas that are coming from the OSDU forum themselves, and we load them as part of that test data set. And if I expand it here, you'll see that we have the actual JSON definition of the schema that you can view. And then this is really useful when you're working on actually loading data and trying to construct a manifest that matches a schema. And then once you have your legal tags and your schema, the next thing to do is actually load some data. So we have a simple data loading user interface that also provides an example of how you would do this as like a curl command or other type of request. So in most cases, we find people loading data with some type of a script or things along those lines. But if you did have just one manifest that you were trying to load, this is a great way to do it. So you can see we have an option to select a file from a disk, or there's a view and example here where we can see an example well master data record that you could actually just copy paste, and this would load a record into the platform and provide a great example of how to interact with the platform and be able to add new records as needed. So once you've loaded some records, of course, you can search for them. So let's take an example and let's find a well. Everyone knows what a well is. So wells are a master data record type in the OSDU platform. And through the Express for EDI search user interface, you're able to view the OSDU search services metadata associated with different records. And there are two important input fields with a search service request. And those are the kind that you're going to filter on, and then the query associated with that. So in this case, we're just looking for all well records, and then we didn't apply any query. So here you can see we have this well 1001 as an example, and you can interact with the record here and view the JSON metadata associated with it. This is coming from the search service. You can also do, and there's a much prettier view if that suits you better. It presents the metadata in this way. And then we also recently added a feature where for records that are associated with a geolocation, you can actually go to it on a map. So get back, search here. Apologies, I just want to do this in a so I don't lose it. So if I click on this well, we have this new button here to open in a map, and this will actually take you to the place on the Earth where this well happens to be located. And then this provides you a connection between the search capabilities of the OSDU platform and then an example of a map viewer type interface where a geoscientist would be interacting with data from the platform in like a map, and like maybe drawing some bounds on a map and interacting with all the records within that space, possibly creating a collection or doing things along those lines. And we'll see if I run a search for all wells here, we'll see that our test data set actually includes mini wells. And as we move across this map viewer, you could interact with any of them. And then, of course, you're able to go back from this map viewer to the search interface and interact with the actual metadata and find other information about this well or the well bore, such as the current status or the events associated with it, perhaps the associated actual seismic volumes and logs. Cool. So then the last piece I'd like to show after the map viewer is our visualization app. So we've also built a capability to be able to visualize wellbores here. And of course, this is an example of what a wellbore visualization app can be, and is really just demonstrating the capabilities of the OSDU services and the requisite API calls to enable this type of visualization in a web app for a user. So here you can see we're automatically searching for this BIR well, and we're going to find a number of associated wells with wellbores, and then I can select any of these wellbores and visualize them here in my user interface. Great. Those are really the items I wanted to cover on Express for EDI today. So just kind of in summary, Express for EDI is this subscription as a service offering for AWS's Energy Data Insights distribution. And it includes these easy to use portals and consoles that allow you to manage your users, your instance itself, and then also interact with the services of the OSDU. And I'm happy to take some questions.
Yeah, Ben, maybe I'll start. Thank you so much, first of all, for the great demo and the presentation of Express of Energy Data Insights on AWS. I posted the marketplace link in chat, but can you maybe elaborate and repeat or repeat how would one choose between different subscription options?
Sure.
What is the good time to pick software as a service versus platform as a service and things like that?
Yeah, let me actually go to our subscription information page here. And I think that's going to answer this really nicely. So, oh, let me find the right page here in our docs. Okay, great. So, yeah, as you mentioned, our Express for EDI has really two different tenancy options and two different deployment types. We have the platform as a service and the software as a service offering. And then within the software as a service offering, we have both a dedicated tenant and a multi-tenant type. And your choice in whether to do a SaaS as a dedicated or multi-tenant or to do a pass offering really depends on your requirements in terms of data locality and boundaries. So like often subscribing organizations will be steered towards the dedicated tenant or pass offering due to requirements around how their data is stored and their ability to control where that data is stored. So some organizations have requirements that, for example, their data can only be in AWS accounts that they own. Well, that would be a use case for the pass offering because that is an account that you as the subscribing organization own, and then you enable us to fulfill your EDI subscription in that account. For other use cases, like trying to just learn how the OSDU platform works, but you're maybe building an integration or working on integrating an app with it, but you're maybe more cost conscious or uh, don't want to have the requirements that come along with the pass offering of creating the AWS account and creating the requisite fulfillment role for us, then you'd be able to do the SaaS offering where the dedicated offering gives you your own OSDU deployment. So you can control all of the data within it. You're able to work across multiple partitions within the OSDU platform and all of the resources and billing associated with all of um, the platform underlying AWS resources is yours, and you're able to turn it on and off, all of those types of things. And then in the multi-tenant offering, we'd see you receiving a single partition within a larger OSDU deployment where there are multiple tenants on that deployment, and each tenant has their own partition. And that allows you to very easily interact with the OSDU services without having to worry about, that allows you to interact with OSDU services in the lowest cost option. Also allows you to interact with a platform that has a test data set already loaded and things like that. So really useful for learning how the services work and being able to develop integrations in a low cost fashion.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. And that's a good link. Maybe you can drop it in the chat so folks
Yes,
can
absolutely.
read up on that a little bit more. And I got a few questions in the chat about visualization. If you can see those, would you mind comment on those?
Yes. Steve, I'm not sure which library we are using for the visualization of the wellbore, but under the covers, I can tell you it's using the OSDU subscription service, or I should say storage service, to be able to request the data set information for that wellbore and then actually view it. So if I were to view the network here in the browser, you would see that request. So when I click visualize here, it's going to be making a request to storage service, verifying that my user is entitled to actually retrieve the record associated with this wellbore, and then retrieving the actual wellbore record from the S3 bucket where it's stored. But I'm not familiar right now with the exact library we're using for the visualization. And then Rashid's question, does visualization respond to different data sets about wells, such as directional surveys, check shots, headers, etc.? Currently, this visualization app is just to demonstrate wellbores, but you definitely could create a visualization app that is able to support other OSDU data sets and other organizations that are more dedicated to creating visualization and data interaction type applications have created those tools that integrate with OSDU. And those are the types of web apps that we work to integrate with EDI and OSDU as a deployment. We're just not demonstrating them today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I see one more question in the chat. Maybe you'll take that offline because I have a few other things I wanted to share before we wrap up the meeting. But thank you so much for presentation. Great content. Again, the info for Ben was posted in the chat as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to him or me, and we can address anything you have on your mind accordingly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for the time and having me here.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. All right. Let me share the most important thing. I really appreciate if everybody could fill out a quick survey. We've been doing this enablement sessions, which is a little bit of a kind of grassroots effort on our side at AWS with marketing support for 2024. And like I mentioned in the beginning, it's our third session. So I would very much like to continue for us to do this in the year to come, which is with the next session planned around February, June 2025, and so on. But I really like some feedback. So if you could either scan a QR code, or I'm going to go ahead and paste the link of the survey to the chat as well. Just give us some feedback. What things would you like to see? If you want to nominate yourself to be a presenter for things like for the next session, very much welcome that as well. So just, yeah, let's just spend a few moments and fill out the survey. Let me go ahead and give you a link in the chat. So that's the survey link as well, or go ahead and scan the QR code. All right, so hopefully everybody got the QR code or the link. I'm going to go ahead and switch to our last slide. So quick call to action. If you are at the Open Group Houston Summit, which is next week, AWS is going to have a booth. And I think we're going to have a representative from IBM and Hitachi Digital Services 47 Lining there as well. So please come find us, ask any questions that you might not had the chance to ask in this webinar, or just email using the contact information provided in the chat to all the presenters and myself, and we'll be happy to address that. And if you have any nominations, please email those to me for the upcoming sessions at ygubinov@amazon.com or OSDU on aws@amazon.com. And we'll be happy to address those. With that, we're almost on our time commitment, so I'm going to pause the recording. Thank you again for our presenters, Scott from IBM and Ben from the 47 Lining Hitachi Digital Services. I'm super excited. This has been the most attended session of the year to conclude the 2024, more or less, at least on the webinar side, and looking forward to seeing everybody at 2025. Thank you. And I'll pause the recording, but we'll stick on the line for another minute or two to take any questions that you might have.